of all of the projects I've worked on, I've chosen 3 of them. One is actually, it wasn't, I didn't conceive of it as a project, but it was more a way for me to deal with my grief when I lost my grandmom, and that's this. Sorry. The other is about a year ago, actually 2 years ago, I think. This friend of mine, Krupa, who unfortunately can't join us today, and I, we worked on a project which was a very large open network initiated by Goethe, and that was actually 3 or 4 years ago, and it was called the Bangalore City Project. And it was very kind of vibrant initially, and then kind of became a small group of people who continued to work around the muse of the city. And then we found ourselves constantly working on it. And the way it turned out was we were both very interested in the notion of neighborhoods. She from a conservation architecture point of view, and she had done this thesis on the neighborhood of Whitefield, so the settlement, as an Anglo-Indian settlement, as part of her master's. So we decided that could we do kind of like a cross-pollination, how can we work together and do something beyond of a walk and beyond of trying to, get the community engaged in trying to understand what it is, just for the 2 of us. Mm-hmm. We ended up with a series of 6 short films that kind of took the base of her research and then also all of our interactions with the community, and they were short stories, almost episodical, 6 to 8 minutes long. Then last year I kind of decided that I wanted to focus on Malleswaram. And I was trying to place this neighborhood as the cultural heart of the city, in some sense, at least for as far as, if I could label things, I would label it like that. And so, it is hopefully the first few of a longer series of short films of people today that we know, like people like us who are practicing or doing something in the creative space, but kind of trying to understand how the neighborhood has either influenced them or whether they find a connection continuing with the neighborhood, even if they may have moved outside. So there are 3 short films that I'll show you today of young artists who either have lived or continue to live and work in Malleswaram. And the third one is something that quite literally I spent the last day working on. So it is really, really nascent. And it started with, basically I did a series of interviews with my aunt, and that was a year ago. And I just would meet her for breakfast and talk to her. Now the reason I felt like my aunt would be important is because she's been extremely activated in the education and cultural landscape of the city. And my hope eventually is that somehow I can connect this, she can be my anchor, connecting a personal story to also the story of a city at large. So, so these, I've got about 9 interviews, so 9 different days, about 2 hours of interview with her, which pretty much capture, I think, an early part of her life, starting from her childhood. And today, I just have the first interview that I did with her, which I've kind of edited and tried to create some kind of a story.
This is something that we've been working on for the past 3.5 to 4 months, and we have done some text for it, but it's not ready. So I'm going to talk about my entry point into the project. When we were starting to think about this project, yes, the monumental history of the library as this kind of place that collects all the knowledge of the world together was there as an idea in our heads. But for me, the entry point was about personal histories of libraries and our relationship with reading and books. So when we first started talking about the project and the scope and the shape that this idea could take, the one text that we instantly thought of was Invisible Cities as a reference point. And because like Calvino's text is this kind of like fantastical tribute to the cities that we live in, but also describes cities that are shaped by the interior lives and desires of people who live in the cities. And at a time when the future of reading felt a little unsure, because we are reading a lot online, and reading in terms of reading a book and going to a library seemed a little threatened, we thought that we could look at the idea of invisible libraries as a way of thinking about the value of books and libraries in our lives. So given that we were so inspired by invisible cities, we kind of wanted to adapt that frame, the outer frame of invisible cities, to invisible libraries. So in invisible libraries, you have Borges, who has just been, he's like a patron saint of all bibliophiles, and he's just been appointed the librarian of the National Library of Argentina. And sadly for him, he was given the post just around the time that he lost his sight. So basically, he enlists the help of three kind of informants, three reader travelers. And we are still to decide on these personas, but tentatively we have thought of Emma Bovary, Ibn Battuta and Calvino for various reasons. Emma Bovary because she's like as a literary character whose life was defined by reading, and that her entire fate depended on the fact that she read a lot of these romantic novels and was subsequently dissatisfied with her unromantic life, and whatever happens in her life happens because of her relationship, this kind of intense relationship to books. So we thought of her as a possible persona who could speak passionately about books, and we thought of Calvino because of invisible cities, and Ibn Battuta because he's a traveler. This was a random choice, but we are yet to arrive at the three voices because we think that the voices are going to shape the text that we're going to write as well. And the idea is that these three informants are sent out and they come back with, like in Invisible Cities, Marco Polo comes back with the tales of imaginary and real cities. They will come back with tales of libraries. And like in Invisible Cities, while he's describing all these imaginary and real cities, he's actually only describing Venice. We're imagining that the descriptions that these people are going to bring back to Borges about the different libraries in the world could possibly be just describing the potential of any library. Or at least that's the thought that we have in our mind right now. And the form that the texts have taken are these kind of short vignettes that are interspersed with conversation between Borges and the three informants. And we were thinking of going with a comic form because we thought that it would bring about the sensuousness of libraries and books in a visual way also, but we were struggling with the fact that it can't just be illustrative of the text. The images can't be illustrative of the text. So we have some rough sketches for two of the stories. The other ones are works in progress. We might or might not take that course later on, depending on how the work develops. And the texts themselves will explore the world of books and libraries, from the personal to the abstract, to little-known tales about bibliophiles, to well-known literary allusions.